everybody get settled for a second before we start. I'd like to welcome you all to the informational meeting of the shareholders of Immune Therapeutics. We're filming this morning's meeting and expect to archive of the informational meeting of shareholders to be available on our website by this Monday, August 22nd at www.immunetherapeutics.com. The printed program, which was on your chair when you came in, is set forth today's agenda and rules of conduct for the meeting. I will first provide an informational update, then there will be a period of general questions and discussions. I'd like to introduce Kirsten Bartholomew, the Corporate Secretary.
Thank you, Noreen. The board fixed August 16th, 2016 as the record date for determining shareholders that are eligible to attend the meeting. As Noreen stated, the purpose of this meeting, or will state that is to provide information to our shareholders, and the meeting now be duly convened.
Good morning. In order to conduct an orderly meeting and give all eligible shareholders an opportunity to participate, please follow the rules of conduct as set forth in the program. During the meeting, questions and comments from the floor should pertain to the specific content being addressed. On that note, I'll start. I'll welcome all of you to the informational meeting of Immune Therapeutics shareholders. In the past 12 months have been a period of continued progress for Immune, despite some negative investor sentiment, challenging capital markets, which have affected the entire biotech section. The company acknowledges that many of the goals we had set have taken much longer to obtain than originally anticipated. But it is important to note that no company has ever taken a non-FDA or generic drug into an emerging nation and received drug approval. We ran into many challenges that were not anticipated, including the outbreak of Ebola and terrorism attacks in Nigeria. The drug approval process, whether in domestic or international emerging markets, is time-consuming, expensive, and frustrating. But in the last 6 months, we have succeeded in obtaining approval from the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, in Nigeria, and the approval from the Pharmacy, Medicine, and Poison Board in Malawi in conjunction for clinical trials for the prevention of cancer. I want to take a minute to provide a brief history of Nigerian drug approval process, since it took almost 2 years longer than anticipated. NAFDAC has stringent requirements for drug approval. The United Nations helped NAFDAC launch 2 laboratories in Nigeria and supervised NAFDAC's accreditation. These laboratories are now internationally recognized and respected. The development has given NAFDAC global acceptance of its regulatory products that it tests and certifies, which means in simple terms that all the products analyzed for export or import purposes carry special ISO logos, therefore making commodities accepted all over the world. To better understand ISO international standards, these standards specifically ensure that products, services are safe, reliable, and in good quality. For businesses, they are strategic tools that reduce the cost and minimize waste and productivity. They help companies to access new markets, level the playing field for developing countries, and facilitate free and global trade. It is very impressive that Nigeria has been able to obtain this certification. Because Nigeria is one of the toughest agencies in Africa for drug approval, their approval was critical to our African development strategy for a number of reasons. NAFDAC is considered the leading FDA in Africa today. They are also a member of the Economic Community of West Africa, a regional group of 15 nations. Approval from NAFDAC allows Immune Therapeutics to fast-track our approval in the other West African nations. The Nigerian approval also grants us a local patent, and other members of the West African community recognize that 5-year exclusivity, which NAFDAC can and we anticipate extend another 5 years, which means nobody can bring naltrexone in any form into Nigeria for a minimum of 5 years, which protects us better than a patent would, since the UN has a treaty that says emerging nations don't need to abide by patents. We received approval for Lotinol as a treatment for HIV/AIDS on April 16th, and then began the registration process on May of 2016 with NAVDAC. As with FDA drug approval process, approval for distribution of drugs requires different approvals. The process has been slow again because this is the first time NAVDAC has registered a drug approved by them for a treatment. At this time, the company and our partner ARHAR have provided all the required paperwork, and the facility for distribution has now been certified by NAVDAC. We hope to receive our net registration number shortly. The company anticipates sales in Nigeria within 30 days of receipt of the registration from NAVDAC, which will allow us to begin to market the product to both the private sector as well as the public sector. Since our approval in Nigeria has been completed, we have filed for our approvals of Lodinol with both the United Nations and PEPFAR. The company, with our partner GB Pharma, was asked to present at two major conferences, one in Geneva with the World Health Organization, and one in New York with the World Health Organization, which included PEPFAR, UNDP, as well as all the recognized HIV funding potential partners. We also, with GB Pharma, participated in the 21st International AIDS Conference in Durban, South Africa. Paramount in this year's conference, and often repeated in various contexts, is there must be a focus on decreasing viral load, reducing opportunistic infections, and guaranteeing no one is left behind in the HIV/AIDS response. Dr. Herndon and myself, with Champions for AIDS, a group of former African heads of state led by former President Joyce Banda, we're presenting our results in Nigeria. In this meeting, President Banda lauded the success of Lodinol and insisted it was a treatment regime that should be made available to all in need. In addition, Dr. Herndon was allowed to make a short presentation on the reduction of viral loads and the support of LDN by the Nigerian NAVDAC in our trial. Dr. Herndon also participated in the emergency plan that has been set up for West and Central Africa, as this is an area that has the highest incidence of HIV/AIDS and the least number of population now being treated. This emergency plan was hosted by Dr. Jibril Diallo and included participation from UNAID, Global Fund, WHO, International Ministers of Health, and the National AIDS Council. This was a great opportunity for Immune, as the countries covered by the West and Central Africa Plan are included in the Nigerian West Africa Community Development Group. I would now like to provide information about our trials in Malawi. The trial is important for a number of reasons. One is which is the health of women that have had no care, with 95% of women with cervical cancer dying today. We believe we can have an impact and save lives. The primary endpoints are safety, acceptability, and feasibility of a single treatment approach to cervical cancer prevention through chirosurgery. The patients recruited for this trial will be examined and screened for HIV. Abnormal cells will be dealt with immediately. Patients that are either precancerous or have HIV/AIDS will start a regimen of LDN. The objective through this double-pronged approach is to extend life, improve overall well-being of the patients, including pain control, improved performance status, immune function, and increased body weight. LDN's immune balancing mechanism will boost both the immune system for those with HIV positive, but will also reduce viral loads and have an effect on opportunistic infections. The company intends and is working with a number of local agencies in Africa and hopes to initiate additional trials in the next 6 months, which will include an adjunct for chemotherapy in Kenya and Ghana, and HIV/AIDS in Malawi. The additional trials with Lodinol, the company expects to complete the protocols for cancer trials with metenkephaline in Nigeria by the end of this year. The company has also been working with our partner in China Hubei Qinjiang since 2013, the Chinese and the Chinese Food and Drug Administration. Many of the Chinese requirements have slowed down the development, but we have continued to move forward with this project. In the last 18 months, we've completed many of the steps that are required to begin clinical trials with the Chinese FDA. The companies modified the agreement with Hubei in late 2014 as the Chinese FDA required complete formulation, 2-year stability reports, and 2-year toxicology studies before allowing a trial to begin. And the 2 large animal trials have been started and will be completed by the end of 2016. We have now completed the formulation and completed the dossier on methamphetamine and are now ramped up for mass production. We have also completed the chemistry manufacturing controls requirements, which is your CMC work, which is required for the US FDA, so we can start trials here as well. The work was completed by Chinese Peptide Company, which is one of only a handful of companies in the world that can claim both ISO certification, CGMP, and FDA approval. It is the first peptide company to successfully pass US FDA inspection outside the US and Europe. Hubei is in the process of translating and will provide all formulation, dossier, data in English by the end of the year. Once we have that data in hand, we will be filing for our pivotal phase 2B studies in the United States for pancreatic and liver cancer. Hubei signed contract and has completed a tremendous amount of work both on the toxicology side, but in addition, we have been doing in vitro studies to determine what cancers respond best to methamphetamine. At this time, we know our results work very successfully with pancreatic cancer, hepatic cancer, cervical cancer, and melanoma. The company will be filing with the FDA for our approvals to start a pivotal trial at that time. We estimate the time frame to be the end of 2016 or the first quarter of 2017. In addition to the work with Hubei, we're in the process of filing additional patents on the work of Professor Shen, which involves leukapheresis and a CAR-T therapy which in the US has had very limited success. This year, Professor Shen reached a major breakthrough. The new breakthrough included a number of super antigens as well as ME and K. It has been successful in small treatments of patients, approximately 35. At this point, we have treated for liver, small cell lung, renal, melanoma, colon, and breast very successfully. Leukapheresis is a laboratory process in which the patient's own white blood cells are separated and then incubated with all of the new antigens and then re-put back into the body to fight cancer. The company is now looking and has entered into discussions with potential drug development partners in China and in the United States. The company has filed a number of pending patents, which we will believe expand our patent protection. In addition to those patents, we're continuing to work to better determine mechanisms of action of both drugs so we can expand our patent protection. The company continues to work and will continue to work both in the United States and emerging markets. I'd like to thank our valued shareholders for their ongoing support of the company over the past year. Your continued commitment and confidence in the company is greatly appreciated together. We can achieve great things, but only for our shareholders, but also for millions of people that will benefit from our products. I also want to assure our shareholders we are intending to hold another shareholder meeting first quarter of 2017 for the election of directors. Thank you very much. Questions and answers? Okay. Turn it back over to you.
And so no questions? All right, so then the meeting is official. Yeah.
Just obviously just interested in how we're doing in fundraising for obviously for the trials in America. I know that's been an ongoing challenge.
We're actually at this point talking to strategic partners. We believe we really don't need a great deal of money. We could actually complete our phase 3 trial for approximately $13 million. But for a small company with a drug that's highly disruptive to the market because of its affordability, it has been a very difficult challenge. So at this time, we've been fortunate enough to be able to have discussions. But if our sales begin the way we believe they are, within the next 12 months, we should be able to fund our own trials.
So these are the sales coming from Nigeria? So
Not just Nigeria, as I was explaining. With the approval in Nigeria, we automatically have access to 15 other countries. We are talking to all of them and have started the approval process in those countries. It involves Kenya, South Africa on one level, but the 15 countries involve Ghana, Senegal, Ethiopia, very, very large target markets, and with us now working directly with UNAIDS and the local agencies, we believe we will not only we won't be dependent just on the private sector for sales.
And then obviously, will the stock price be affected by increased earnings in the next year? Or are we still facing challenges from the unscrupulous people that are not treating us well?
I think at some point revenue speaks for itself. Would it take longer? I can't answer that, but I can tell you that the company, if we dividend, which as you know, we've always said that that's one of the things we'll do with revenue, we'll pay for our trials. So in my opinion, I can't answer what the market will do. All I know is what we can do. And what we'll do is provide drugs, and we'll get paid for providing those drugs.
Is the relationship with the Maxim Group ongoing and acceptable?
We're dealing with Maxim, but we've also been approached by a number of other people. I think the position of this company, which is any company, changes when you have revenue.
Sure.
So my opinion would be we'll wait and see what the next couple months bring. But we're working with what I consider important strategic partners.
So Noreen, are the drugs being sold to hospitals, or to be sold commercially to individuals? Or?
It will be a combination of private sector sales and public sector sales. NAC, which is in every single country that the UN and PEPFAR work with, actually place the orders. They're approved by the UNAIDS organization in the United States or in Belgium, either way. But orders start locally, and they are the public company monies are under the control of NAC, which is the National Organization for AIDS Councils.
So most of the good trials that have occurred recently are regarding AIDS primarily more than cancer?
So we are working with NAVDAC for our approval of our other indications. The trial we're doing right now, we have approval for the drug in Malawi, is for cancer. There will be other indications that we are working on, but our goal was to complete our trial and validate both the business model and the drug in one country to start. So that's where all our focuses went for the last 2 years. It was getting the drug, first of all, approved in Nicaragua, so we have certificate of free sale, so we could even file an application for drug approval in Nigeria. That's a 2-step process. This took 7 months because, again, you had to formulate the drug. You had to get it approved through the Minister of Health. That approval then had to get approved for export into the country you wanted to export into, and then you had to file the application for drug approval in Nigeria. So you had a year's worth of work before you could start the second piece. But at this point, we accomplished that. But we picked Nigeria on purpose because today, and if you look at what happened with the Ebola crisis, Nigeria stepped up and all of Africa knew it. They were the first ones to be able to control. They helped the surrounding countries how to deal with the crisis. So they are the respected FDA. The U.S. Department of Defense is working with the Nigerians in Nigeria on Ebola trials. A lot of their ministers of health and a lot of their people at NAVDAC are U.S. trained. So the criteria is extremely time consuming and must be validated. But if you look at our results, we went head to head with antiretrovirals, which have tremendous opportunistic infections attached to them, and they have a large problem with compliance attached to them. Our trials showed their HIV drugs increased viral loads by 11%. We increased viral loads by 44%. Viral loads and CD4 count are the determination of your health, not only with HIV/AIDS, but other diseases. So, especially as it relates to opportunistic infections in HIV/AIDS. So the fact that we can keep up viral loads and CD4 count is extremely critical.
We were using Nicaragua for labeling some.
You cannot file. You cannot export a drug anywhere in the world without a certificate of free sale. You cannot have a certificate of free sale from the United States because low-dose naltrexone in anything other than 50 to 100 milligrams is not approved. So the first step is you have to have a certificate of free sale. So you had to go to a country that was willing to test the drug, formulate the drug with you, validate the drug with you, and give you an export license. Well, through some mutual friends that had worked with the company in the past, they had worked with the government of Nicaragua, and the government of Nicaragua had just purchased Ramos Labs and had put a great deal of money into it. So it met criteria. So then we brought in specialists that had worked with Abbott Labs on formulation in the past, flew them down. They spent a couple months in Nicaragua putting together the dossier, putting together the formulation, and getting the drug approved there. So once we had that approval, we were then able to file our application in Nigeria.
And I noticed in some of our cities that on the website that you can buy Lodenol from some of these doctors in a lower dose or something that once in a while.
It's not a true off-label use of the drug. The FDA is not very fond of the actions. It will be very much like other drugs that have gone through this process with the FDA in the past. Compounders will be shut down from doing it. We could go out and spend a lot of money fighting it, but it's easier to just let the FDA do their job when we get approval. Much simpler.
But what about the physicians that are shown on the website? I mean,
there are physicians in the United States that will prescribe it off-label. Since I take it every day, it's a very weird argument to have. Okay? In fact, there's many people in this room that take the drug and have. That's how we got involved with the company. This is a repurposing of a drug. It is a new process with the FDA. It allows you to fast track. It allows you to use existing data. Most doctors will not prescribe off-label. Their insurance carriers don't like it. The risk factor to them is there. So yes, you do find a number of doctors around the United States that do it. But it is also why we formulate it, why we have a 503B manufacturer, that if you really want to prescribe, at least we're providing you with a CGMP manufactured drug while we go through the FDA process.
We just wanna know how to get it.
Oh, if you'll go talk to Dr. Popick when this is over, he'll be happy to help you.
That's like a card right there.
Anybody else want?
If we're done, I'm gonna close the meeting, and then I'll talk to you gentlemen if you'd like afterwards.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you, Marie.